Maya Rodriguez had always been proud of her humble beginnings. Growing up in a small apartment above her parents' neighborhood bakery in the heart of the city, she learned the value of hard work, integrity, and kindness from an early age. The delicious scent of fresh bread would wake her every morning at dawn, and by 16, she could craft the most exquisite pastries with her eyes closed. The bakery wasn't just a business. It was the beating heart of their community, a place where people gathered to share stories over coffee and conscience. When she met Sebastian Whitman at University him with his designer clothes and stories of European vacations, she never imagined he would look twice at her. Maya was attending on a scholarship, working part-time at a cafe to afford her textbooks, while Sebastian drove a luxury car his parents had gifted him for his 20th birthday. But against all odds, they fell in love. Their differences seemed to complement each other. Her practicality balanced his impulsiveness. His ambition pushed her to dream bigger. For 3 years, they built what Maya believed was an unshakable foundation. She introduced him to the simple joys of homemade Sunday dinners with her family. He showed her art galleries and symphony halls she'd only seen in movies. They talked about marriage, children, a future where their worlds would fully merge. Then came the economic downturn. Maya's parents' bakery began struggling as luxury spending in the neighborhood decreased. Medical bills piled up when her father was diagnosed with heart problems. Maya made the difficult decision to pause her graduate studies to help save the family business and care for her father. She poured her savings into keeping the bakery afloat, working 14-hour days with flour-covered hands and determination in her heart. Sebastian grew increasingly distant. The dinner dates became less frequent, his calls shorter. When he finally asked to meet at their favorite park bench overlooking the city skyline, Maya knew something was wrong. The autumn leaves swirled around them as he explained that their lives were moving in different directions, that he needed someone who could match his lifestyle, someone more established. "I just can't see a future with someone who might always be struggling," he said, not quite meeting her eyes. "You understand, right? It's not personal, it's just practical." But to Maya, there was nothing more personal than being reduced to a financial liability. As she watched him walk away through blurry tears, she never imagined that 6 months later, his ex-girlfriend would appear at the bakery door with information that would change everything. Maya and Sebastian's relationship had blossomed in their junior year of college. They met in a literature class where they were paired for a semester-long project on Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Sebastian was immediately drawn to Maya's passionate analysis of magical realism, while she found herself charmed by his witty observations and the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. Their first date was at a small coffee shop, where they talked until the baristas began stacking chairs around them. Sebastian confessed he'd never met anyone who saw the world quite like Maya did, finding beauty in the ordinary, magic in the mundane. When he walked her to her bus stop, he seemed embarrassed that she wasn't heading toward the upscale student apartments where he lived. "I live above my parents' bakery," she explained without a hint of shame. "You should come by sometime. My mom makes the best conscious in the city." To her surprise, he showed up the very next morning. As Maya's mother served him coffee in a chipped mug, and her father taught him how to properly knead dough, Sebastian seemed genuinely enchanted by their warm, flour-dusted world. Maya watched with amusement as this polished young man with manicured nails eagerly plunged his hands into sticky dough, laughing at his own clumsiness. "This is real," he'd said later as they sat on the fire escape, watching the neighborhood come alive. "Everything in my world feels so manufactured, but this your family. This place is authentic." As their relationship deepened, Maya discovered layers to Sebastian she hadn't expected. Behind the confident exterior was someone searching for meaning beyond the privileged path laid out for him. The son of a prominent surgeon and a corporate attorney, Sebastian had always been expected to follow in his parents' prestigious footsteps. His passion for photography and documentary filmmaking was dismissed as a hobby by his family. They think anything that doesn't come with a 6-figure starting salary is a waste of time. He confided one night as they flipped through his portfolio of black and white street photography. "Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to just break free and pursue what I actually love." Maya encouraged him to take his art seriously, and for his birthday, she saved for months to buy him a vintage camera lens he'd been eyeing. It wasn't the most expensive gift he received. His parents had given him a new car, but when he opened her carefully wrapped package, his eyes had welled with tears. No one's ever understood me like you do, he whispered against her hair. For nearly 3 years, they navigated complexities of their different backgrounds. There were uncomfortable moments. Sebastian's mother eyeing Maya's thrift store dress at a country club dinner. Maya's friends teasing her about dating a trust fund kid. But they always found their way back to each other, to the connection that seemed to transcend their circumstances. They spent holidays alternating between worlds, Thanksgiving at his parents' lakeside mansion, where the conversation revolved around stock portfolios, and Christmas at her family's apartment, where everyone crowded around a small table laden with traditional dishes passed down through generations. Sebastian would later confess that he felt more at home in her family's noisy, loving chaos than in the echoing halls where he grew up. Maya believed they were building something real and lasting, even as whispers of doubt occasionally surfaced. She noticed how Sebastian's friends would exchange glances when she mentioned the bakery's financial struggles, or how he sometimes hesitated before introducing her at networking events. These people are so obsessed with status, he'd assure her when she brought it up. You're worth 10 of them with their empty conversations and inherited wealth. She believed him, especially when he talked about their future, a cozy home filled with books and art, maybe a small photography studio, children who would know both the value of money and the richness of life beyond material things. They spent countless evenings planning this shared dream, sketching floor plans on napkins and debating names for their future children. But when the economic crisis hit and Maya's family faced financial ruin, something shifted. Sebastian began mentioning friends who were already buying property or investing in startups. He grew quiet when Maya talked about the bakery's mounting debts or her father's medical expenses. His invitations to events became less frequent, often accompanied by questions about whether she had something appropriate to wear. The final month of their relationship were marked by growing silences and unspoken tensions. Maya was too exhausted from working double shifts to notice at first, but gradually, she felt him pulling away emotionally and physically. When the breakup finally came, it seemed both sudden and inevitable, like a storm that had been gathering on the horizon for months. The day Sebastian broke up with Maya was unseasonably cold for October. The park where they often spent Sunday afternoons was nearly empty, the usual families and dog walkers driven away by the biting wind that sent golden leaves skittering across the pathways. Maya had arrived 10 minutes early, as was her habit. She sat on their bench, the one with the small heart they'd carved into the underside during their first year, together, rubbing her hands together for warmth. She closed the bakery early, leaving her mother to handle the last few customers, because Sebastian had said they needed to talk. Something important. The seriousness in his voice had triggered an uneasy feeling that followed her all day. When Sebastian appeared, walking briskly along the path with his cashmere scarf fluttering behind him, Maya's heart did the familiar little leap it always did at the sight of him. But today, he didn't return her smile. Instead, he sat beside her with a careful distance between them, his posture stiff and formal. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he began, staring out at the city skyline rather than meeting her eyes. "About us. About our future." Maya's stomach clenched. "What about our future?" Sebastian sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "We've had a good run, Maya. These past 3 years have been special, but I think we need to be realistic about where our lives are headed." Realistic? The word fell like a stone between them. You've had to drop out of graduate school. You're working full-time at the bakery. Your family situation is... He paused, searching for a word. Precarious. Maya felt heat rise to her face. "It's temporary. Dad's getting better, and once he's back on his feet." "But that's just it," Sebastian interrupted. "Even if the bakery recovers, what then? You've always talked about taking it over someday." And I finally turned to look at her, his expression a carefully constructed mass of regret. "I need to think about my career trajectory, the connections I'm making, the life I want to build. And I'm not part of that life." Maya's voice was barely audible over the rustling leaves. "You're amazing, Maya. You're kind and creative and so incredibly strong. But I need someone who can be a true partner in the world I move in. Someone who understands the importance of appearances, of social standing." The words hit Maya like physical blows. "Are you seriously breaking up with me because I'm not rich enough for you?" She hadn't meant to sound so bitter, but the pain was raw and immediate. Sebastian winced. That's reductive. It's not about being rich. It's about compatibility. Long-term planning. I'm being practical. Practical, Maya repeated. The word tasted like ash in her mouth. 3 years together, and it all comes down to a practical decision. My parents are introducing me to Vanessa Harrington next week, he admitted after a painful silence. Her father owns half the real estate downtown. They think we'd be a good match. Maya stood abruptly, unable to sit beside him any longer. Well, I wouldn't want to stand in the way of such a prudent business arrangement. Maya, please try to understand. Sebastian reached for her hand, but she pulled away. This isn't just about money. It's about lifestyle compatibility, about moving in the same circles. No, I understand perfectly, she said, tears finally spilling onto her cheeks. You've made yourself very clear. As she walked away, Sebastian called after her. I still care about you, Maya. I hope someday we can be friends. Maya didn't turn around. She couldn't bear to see his expression, whether it held genuine regret or, worse, relief. The last thought that crossed her mind as she left the park was that she'd never be able to sit on that bench again. The weeks following the breakup were a blur of exhaustion and heartache for Maya. She threw herself into work at the bakery, arriving before dawn to knead dough until her arms ached, serving customers with a forced smile and staying late to scrub every surface until it gleamed. Physical labor became her refuge, a way to exhaust her body enough that her mind might quiet when she finally collapsed into bed. Her parents exchanged worried glances, but knew better than to push. They'd raised a daughter with pride and resilience. They trusted she would find her way through this pain. Her father, still recovering from his heart procedure, would sometimes sit quietly beside her as she closed up shop, offering silent companionship that meant more than any words of comfort. He didn't deserve you, Mija, he said one evening as they counted the day's modest earnings. A man who values money over heart will always be poor in the ways that matter. Maya managed a small smile. I know, Papa. It's just I really thought he was different. Social media became a minefield. Maya couldn't bring herself to unfriend Sebastian, which meant she was subjected to updates from his life that pierced like tiny daggers. 2 weeks after their breakup, the first photos appeared. Sebastian at a gallery opening, his arm casually draped around a willowy blonde in a designer dress. Vanessa Harrington, presumably. They made a picture-perfect couple, both polished, privileged, and poised. The comments section overflowed with compliments and heart emojis. Maya's friends urged her to block him. It's digital self-harm, her roommate from college insisted during their weekly video chat. But something held Maya back. Perhaps a masochistic need to witness the life she wasn't established enough to be part of, or maybe a stubborn hope that she would eventually see these images without feeling like she'd been hollowed out inside. The bakery continued to struggle, though there were small signs of improvement. A local blogger featured their conscience in a Hidden Gems article, bringing in a modest wave of new customers. Maya started offering simple baking classes on weekend evenings, which proved surprisingly popular. She created an Instagram account for the bakery, showcasing her father's traditional recipes and her own innovative creations. Slowly, a small but dedicated following developed. One of these followers, a woman named Elena who frequently ordered their pan dulce, mentioned opening a cafe across town. Your pastries would be perfect for my morning menu, she suggested one morning. We should talk about a potential partnership. For the first time in months, Maya felt a flicker of professional excitement. The possibility of expanding beyond their neighborhood, of creating a sustainable new revenue stream, energized her. That evening, she stayed late sketching ideas for custom pastries that would complement Elena's coffee offerings. As she was locking up, a sleek black car pulled up in front of the bakery. Maya's heart lurched painfully at the familiar make and model identical to Sebastian's. But when the door opened, a woman emerged. Tall, elegant, with the kind of confident posture that spoke of privilege and poise. Even in the dim streetlight, Maya recognized her instantly from the photos. Vanessa Harrington. Maya's first instinct was to retreat inside and pretend she hadn't seen her. What could Sebastian's new girlfriend possibly want? To gloat? to satisfy her curiosity about the struggling baker who wasn't good enough. But before Maya could turn away, Vanessa called out to her. "You're Maya, right? I need to talk to you. It's important." Something in the woman's tone, urgency, mixed with what sounded almost like concern, made Maya hesitate. Against her better judgment, she nodded. "The cafe next door is still open," Maya said, gesturing down the block. "We can talk there." As they walked a short distance in awkward silence, Maya braced herself. Whatever this woman had come to say, Maya was determined to maintain her dignity. She would not break down, would not reveal how much she still hurt, would not give Vanessa any stories to take back to Sebastian or their privileged social circle. What she couldn't possibly have anticipated was how this unexpected encounter would completely upend everything she thought she knew about Sebastian, their relationship, and the real reasons behind their breakup. As they settled into a quiet corner table of the nearly empty cafe, Vanessa placed a thick manila envelope on the table between them. "Before I tell you why I'm here," Vanessa said, her manicured fingers resting protectively on the envelope, "I need to know something. How much did Sebastian tell you about his family's business?" "Sebastian's family business?" Maya repeated, confusion evident in her voice. "His father is a surgeon and his mother is a corporate attorney. There is no family business." A flicker of something surprised, then understanding crossed Vanessa's perfectly made-up face. She took a measured sip of her espresso before responding. "That's what he told you?" Maya felt an uneasy sensation spreading through her chest. "Yes, for 3 years. That's what he told me." "Why? Is that not true?" Vanessa carefully opened the manila envelope and removed several documents, arranging them meticulously on the table. "Dr. James Whitman is indeed a surgeon, a highly respected one. But that's not where the family fortune comes from. And Evelyn Whitman hasn't practiced law in 15 years. Maya stared at the documents before her, newspaper clippings, financial statements, property records, unable to make sense of what she was seeing or why Sebastian's new girlfriend was sharing this information. "The Whitman family owns Lux Property Holdings," Vanessa explained, pointing to a company letterhead. "They're one of the largest commercial real estate developers in the city. They buy distressed properties in struggling neighborhoods, redevelop them into luxury housing or high-end retail spaces, and sell them at enormous profits." Maya's mind raced to process this information. But why would Sebastian lie about something like that? "Because," Vanessa said, sliding a particular document forward, "of properties like this one." Maya felt the blood drain from her face as she recognized the address, her parents' bakery building. According to the document, it had been purchased 6 months ago by a shell company that traced back to Lux Property Holdings. "I don't understand," Maya whispered, though a terrible suspicion was beginning to form. "This says they bought our building, but we still have our lease. We haven't heard anything about new ownership." "That's how they operate," Vanessa explained, her voice softening slightly. "They quietly acquire properties, wait for existing businesses to fail naturally, then swoop in with their redevelopment plans. No messy evictions, no bad press about destroying neighborhood institutions. They just wait." Maya felt dizzy. "Are you saying Sebastian's family owns our building? That they're waiting for our bakery to go out of business?" Vanessa nodded grimly. "The downtown area has been their focus for the past 2 years. They've acquired 17 properties in an 8-block radius around your bakery. The plan is to transform the entire neighborhood into an upscale dining and shopping district called the Heights." She pulled out a glossy brochure with renderings of sleek modern buildings where familiar neighborhood landmarks once stood. "But why are you telling me this?" Maya asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "Why would Sebastian's new girlfriend want to warn me?" At this, Vanessa let out a short, bitter laugh. "I'm not his girlfriend. Not anymore. We dated briefly after you two broke up a relationship our parents enthusiastically encouraged, given my family's connections in city government that could help expedite permits for Lux's projects." She tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear, revealing a vulnerability that made her suddenly seem more human. "Sebastian never told me about you. I discovered your existence accidentally while using his laptop. I found photos, emails 3 years of your life together that he had hidden away. When I confronted him, He admitted everything. Maya's mind was spinning with questions. But why hide me? Why lie about his family's business? Because he fell in love with you, Vanessa said simply. He told me that day he walked into your family's bakery. He was actually there to assess the property father had sent him to report back on the condition of the building, the quality of the business. But instead, he met you. Maya remembered that day vividly, Sebastian's apparent fascination with the bakery's worn tile floors, the ancient espresso machine, the family photos on the walls. She had interpreted his interest as charming curiosity about her world. In reality, he had been conducting reconnaissance. He couldn't bring himself to tell you the truth, Vanessa continued. Not after he saw how much the bakery meant to your family, to the neighborhood. And then, as he put it, it was too late. He had fallen for you, become part of your life. He tried to convince his parents to remove your building from their acquisition list, but they refused. Maya felt sick. So all those times he asked about our finances, about my father's health, about our struggle to keep the bakery open, he was reporting back to his family. Vanessa confirmed, though he claims he began omitting details, trying to make your business sound more successful than it was. When your father got sick and the bakery started struggling more visibly, his parents increased the pressure. So he didn't break up with me because I wasn't established enough, Maya said slowly, the painful truth dawning on her. He broke up with me because his family was actively working to destroy my family's livelihood, and he was too cowardly to tell me. Vanessa nodded. His parents gave him an ultimatum. Either end things with you and fully commit to the family business, or be cut off completely. They arranged for us to meet, thinking I'd be a suitable replacement who understood the necessary sacrifices of business. And why are you here now? Maya asked, studying the woman across from her. Why risk angering a powerful family by telling me all this? Vanessa straightened, a determined look crossing her face. Because what they're doing is wrong. When I realized the full scope of their plans, not just for your building, but for the entire neighborhood, I couldn't be part of it. And neither could Sebastian in the end. She pulled out one final document from the envelope. This arrived at my apartment yesterday. Sebastian has left the country, gone to work with a documentary filmmaker in South America. He enclosed this letter for you, along with this. Vanessa handed over a legal document and a handwritten letter. The document was a deed transfer, placing ownership of the bakery building into Maya's name. The letter, several pages long in Sebastian's familiar handwriting, began, Maya, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. What I've done is unforgivable, but I hope this final act might at least prevent further harm. Maya sat motionless in her apartment, surrounded by the scattered papers Vanessa had given her. The deed to the building lay on her coffee table, like a strange artifact from another world. Sebastian's letter, now read and reread until the edges were soft from handling, rested beside it. Outside, dawn was breaking over the city, pink light filtering through her curtains. She hadn't slept all night. The letter explained everything: how Sebastian had initially approached her as part of his family's business strategy, how his genuine feelings for her had created an impossible conflict, and how he had finally chosen to break away from his family's expectations. He had liquidated his trust fund before his parents could freeze it, using the money to purchase the bakery building from his family's company through a series of complex legal maneuvers that would be difficult to reverse. I know this doesn't make up for my deception, he had written. I don't expect forgiveness, but at least now you and your family will have security. The building is yours free and clear. No mortgage, no property taxes for the next 5 years. Those are prepaid. Do with it what you will. Maya's phone had been buzzing all night with messages from Vanessa, who had shared her personal contact information before leaving the cafe. The two women, united by Sebastian's betrayal, had formed an unexpected alliance. His parents are furious, Vanessa's latest text read. They're threatening legal action, but my father's contact in the city's legal department say Sebastian's paperwork is airtight. They can't touch the property now that it's in your name. As the morning light grew stronger, Maya finally rose from her couch and made a decision. She quickly showered, dressed, and headed to the bakery, arriving before her parents for the first time in weeks. The familiar space looked different somehow. knowing she now owned these walls, this floor, this ceiling. The burden of monthly rent payments suddenly lifted. The constant fear of eviction vanished. Maya fired up the ovens and began mixing dough with a renewed sense of purpose. By the time her parent arrived, the bakery was filled with the comforting aroma of baking bread and brewing coffee. "Mija, you're here early," her mother observed, concern in her eyes. "Did you sleep at all?" Maya took a deep breath and gathered her parents at the small table in the corner where they counted the register each night. Carefully, she explained everything Sebastian's family business, his deception, his final act of atonement. She showed them the deed to the building, explained that their home and business were now secure. Her father's eyes filled with tears. "All this time, we thought he wasn't good enough for you because of his privileges. We never imagined he was struggling with such a terrible secret. I don't know if I can ever forgive him," Maya admitted, "but I do understand him better now. And regardless of his motives, we have an opportunity here." Over freshly baked pan dulce and strong coffee, the Rodriguez family began a plan. Without the burden of rent, they could invest in much-needed equipment upgrades. They could expand their menu, hire additional help, perhaps even renovate the living quarters upstairs. "And what about the other businesses in the neighborhood?" her father asked, always thinking of their community. "If Sebastian's family owns 17 buildings in the area, they're all at risk." That's when Maya remembered the partnership offer from Elena and her cafe. An idea began to form, one that would transform not just their bakery, but potentially the entire neighborhood. By midday, Maya had called an emergency meeting at their bakery. Elena from the cafe was there, along with the owners of the bookstore down the block, the vintage clothing shop across the street, and a dozen other local business owners, all occupying buildings owned by Lux Property Holdings. With Vanessa joining by video call to provide insider information, Maya shared what she had learned about the development plans for their neighborhood. The shock and anger in the room were palpable. "They're counting on us failing individually," Maya explained. "But what if we worked together instead? What if we created our own improvement district on our own terms?" As the sun set on that pivotal day, the Neighborhood Preservation Alliance was born, with Maya at the helm and Vanessa providing strategic advice from her knowledge of real estate development. They began crafting a plan to save not just individual businesses, but the soul of the community they all loved. That evening, Maya sent one brief email to the address Sebastian had left in his letter. "Thank you for the building. We're using it to save the neighborhood. Not just my family's bakery, all of it." 1 year later, Maya stood in an expanded kitchen of what was now called Corazon Bakery and Cafe, watching the bustle of the Saturday morning rush through the pass-through window. The renovation had doubled their space, incorporating the vacant storefront next door into a cozy seating area where customers could enjoy their purchases. Elena's coffee expertise complemented the bakery's offerings perfectly, creating a destination that drew people from across the city. But the bakery's transformation was just one part of a larger renaissance. The Neighborhood Preservation Alliance had grown into a powerful advocacy group that had successfully lobbied the city council for protection of local businesses. With Vanessa's guidance, she had surprisingly discovered a passion for community-focused development. They had created a legal framework that made it harder for large developers to displace established neighborhood institutions. Maya had leveraged her ownership of the building to secure favorable loans for other business owners in the area, helping them purchase their properties when possible or negotiate long-term leases with ironclad protections. The Rodriguez family bakery, once on the verge of failure, was now the cornerstone of a thriving commercial district that maintained its character while welcoming thoughtful, community-minded growth. "Delivery for you," called one of the new employees, interrupting Maya's thoughts. She wiped her hands on her apron and went to sign for the package, a large manila envelope with no return address, postmarked from Argentina. Maya waited until her break to open it in the small office she now shared with her father, who had recovered enough to work part-time. Inside was a USB drive and a short note in Sebastian's handwriting. "Thought you might want to see this. It airs next month on International Documentary Channel." Curiosity overcoming her hesitation, Maya plugged the drive into her computer. The video that began playing was clearly a rough cut of a documentary. The opening shot showed an aerial view of their neighborhood, the bakery visible at its center. Sebastian's voice narrated, "This is the story of how one community fought back against gentrification and won. It's also the story of my family's role in that battle, and my own journey from unwitting accomplice to witness." Maya watched transfixed as the documentary unfolded interviews with local business owners, city council meetings, planning sessions at the bakery. Sebastian had been filming from afar, documenting their struggle and triumph without ever making his presence known. The final segment included an interview with Sebastian himself. Looking different than Maya, remembered his hair longer, his designer clothes replaced by simple linen, his expression more open and authentic than she'd ever seen it. "I was raised to value profit over people," he said directly to the camera. "It took falling in love with someone who embodied the opposite values to show me how empty that existence was. I lost her because of my cowardice, but her strength inspired me to finally become the person I'd always wanted to be." As the documentary ended, Maya sat in stunned silence. Conflicting emotions washed over her, lingering hurt at his deception, pride in what she and her community had accomplished, and a complicated appreciation for his efforts to make amends. Her phone chimed with a text from Vanessa. "Did you get it? He sent me a copy too. I think it's going to make waves in the development world." Maya typed back, "Just watched it. Don't know how to feel." Vanessa's response was immediate. "You don't have to forgive him, but what you've built here is worth celebrating, regardless of how it started. Your community is the real story." Maya smiled at that truth as she left her office and walked through the bakery. Her father was teaching a young apprentice how to properly shape conscience. Her mother was chatting with longtime customers at a corner table. Through the windows, she could see the bookstore across the street hosting a children's reading hour and the vintage shop's new awning brightening the block. This vibrant, interconnected community, not Sebastian's documentary, not his gift for the building, not even his regret, was her true victory. She had transformed betrayal into opportunity, personal heartbreak into communal strength. That evening, as she locked up the bakery, Maya finally replied to Sebastian's email from a year ago, the only communication they'd had since he left. "I watched the documentary. Thank you for telling our story. I hope you found the purpose you were searching for. We're thriving here not because of what you gave us, but because of what we built together after you left. Some foundations, it turns out, are stronger than others." 3 years after Sebastian's departure, the neighborhood once targeted for luxury redevelopment had become a case study in community-led revitalization. Urban planning students from the local university regularly toured the area, guided by Maya and other Alliance members, learning how grassroots organizing could create sustainable development that preserved the community's character while allowing it to evolve. Maya had completed her graduate studies in business administration, writing her thesis on ethical urban development. The bakery had expanded to a second location across town, managed by Elena while Maya oversaw the original store. The Rodriguez family now employed 15 people, offering fair wages and profit sharing that created loyal, invested staff. Sebastian's documentary had indeed made waves, winning several awards and sparking conversations about ethical development practices nationwide. Though he never returned to the city, he and Maya had established a cautious, distant correspondence, professional rather than personal, focused on community development projects rather than their shared past. Vanessa, surprisingly, had become one of Maya's closest friends and strongest allies. She had broken away from her family's business interests to start a consulting firm specializing in equitable urban planning, often collaborating with the Neighborhood Preservation Alliance on new initiatives. On the 5th anniversary of the Alliance's founding, Maya stood before a gathered crowd in the small park that had once been the site of her painful breakup with Sebastian. The space had been revitalized by community volunteers, with a playground designed by local artists and garden beds maintained by neighborhood children. "When we began this journey," Maya told the assembled neighbors, business owners, and city officials, "it was born from necessity, from fear of losing our homes and livelihoods. But it's grown into something much more powerful, a vision of what's possible when a community comes together to determine its own future." She didn't mention Sebastian by name, nor the complicated catalyst that has started it all. Some in the crowd knew the full story. Others knew only pieces. What mattered was where they stood now, stronger, more connected, more resilient. As applause filled the park, Maya caught sight of her parents watching proudly from beneath the shade of a flowering tree they had planted 3 years earlier. Her father, now fully recovered, gave her a thumbs up. Her mother wiped away happy tears. Maya had long since stopped checking Sebastian's social media. She had no idea if he was still in Argentina or if he'd moved on to document other communities, other stories. She hoped he had found his purpose, just as she had found hers, not in a relationship defined by economic differences, but in the rich tapestry of community that transcended any single person's story. Before we end today, Maya concluded, I want to thank you all for proving that our greatest asset was never the buildings we occupy, but the connections between us. Those can never be bought, sold, or developed away.